Hello, Oregon Country Fair. I'm so glad to be here today, and thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Nancy Goodman. I live in Pocatello, Idaho. I'm a licensed counselor. That's my thing. I also like to specify and work on career development also very much. I'm going to be talking to you today about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, also the heroine's journey. We'll get to that. It's something that I've been studying and learning and have been applying in various settings, and certainly applying in my own life for about 15 years. Stumbled on it kind of accidentally, but also through some career development channels. The concept of career is calling, where there's a bigger thing maybe happening in terms of what generates our interests. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to kind of run through the basics of the hero's journey with you today, and also take it a little deeper into kind of what I like to call the second level of the journey, where we're really kind of talking about bigger picture kinds of things, who might be calling, things like that, and then talking a little bit about how can we apply that today, especially in this age of the coronavirus, as I think we as a people, as a species, are at the beginning of a journey towards the unknown. So I think there's a lot of relevance there, and hopefully just give you a lot of information and some things to think about, and opportunities for you to just explore that further on your own and see how that can be applied. I have found it to be incredibly helpful in my life. I feel it has driven a lot of my braver decisions. I was in private practice for a long time. I've done lots of different things, and I feel that this has really been behind me, kind of generating my energy and my bravery for making certain steps, including filling out an application to submit a talk for the Oregon Country Fair. That's a brave act, and definitely this has been my guide for many, many years. So I'm going to kind of run through some things, and I really hope you enjoy it and learn something from it, and come to appreciate it as much as I have. So thank you for listening. Okay, so what I've done here is I've drawn out a basic map of the hero's journey. Now, if you look online and you Google Joseph Campbell hero's journey, you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of versions of what he originally published in his Hero with a Thousand Faces book, which is sort of a skeleton algorithm, I've heard it called, that kind of marks what comes out of us psychologically, and then we launch it onto the films, we launch it into religion, we launch it into lots of different things, and we're going to be able to come up with some very common patterns. The big interesting thing about it is not just what we see and how can we understand what we read in books or read in religion or read or watch in movies or graphic novels or video games, but also how can we plug that in to understand what may be happening to us at any given time, especially if we happen to be in deeply unfamiliar territory for one reason or another. So let's just go ahead and get started. So what we have at the beginning of the journey and the end of the journey is the place called the world of common day. That's just kind of our own lives before anything really happens. It's the beginning of the movies. It's the beginning of anything where things are kind of going along fairly normally. What comes that triggers the adventure is this call to adventure right here. So any movie's got to have that. I like Legally Blonde, actually, is a really good example of the heroine's journey story. In Legally Blonde, she's a sorority girl, she's great, she's doing awesome. Her call to adventure, she gets dumped by her boyfriend. And then all of a sudden has to figure out what she wants to do, who she wants to be, and launches herself into a very much world of the unknown where she decides to go to law school, etc. So the call to adventure is the first step, okay? What comes almost immediately after, in the majority of cases, is going to be the refusal of the call. That's where we say no to whatever unexpected change has happened. It's almost a natural instinct. We are fight or flight oriented. It's very natural and normal to want to resist change. We do not like that instinctively. That kind of sets our limbic system a little on edge because there's something unfamiliar coming. So we resist it. We say no. Okay. And in fact, we can say no a lot throughout the adventure, but it's here. So that's what's going to happen next. Once we have that, call to adventure, refusal of the call kind of happening in one big mess, one way or another, we are being dragged into the world of the unknown from the world of the known. Okay. So in our lives, this can be, we get laid off, we lose a job, we get sick, we have a breakup of a relationship, we get a divorce, or we move, or we choose a new job, or we have a child. There's lots of calls to adventure and changes in our lives that we respond to. But like it or not, off you go into the world of the unknown. Okay? The first thing that happens in this world of the unknown, which is sort of psychologically kind of happening on a deeper level, the first thing that happens is we have a gathering of allies. When you look in those movies, that's kind of the first thing that happens. You see Diagon Alley with Harry Potter, Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars. There's those threshold locations and the threshold guardians who kind of come up and say, hey, we're going to help you out. We're going to give you the things that you need. I used to work with freshmen, college freshmen, and I feel like our freshman orientation program was a threshold location. And my job was to educate these incoming college students about what they need for this next adventure that they're going to be going on. That's study skills and a planner and things like that. So, and learning how to ask for help and learning who your people are that can help you out. I always like to land on gathering of allies whenever I'm feeling out of sorts. I can sit back and be like, okay, so who supports me? Who loves me? Who can I count on if I need it? Who's going to be able to teach me what it is I need to know if you need to go into a new career or whatnot? Who do I have who I need to help? Who can help me out, and if I need to reach out for that? So that's your gathering of allies. Once that goes, then you're kind of in the slog of the hero's adventure, good, bad, and ugly. Joseph Campbell kind of summarized it really simply as trials and revelations. Okay, so while you're on the journey, you're going to have some trials. You're going to have things that happen that challenge you and send you out of your comfort zone. But because of that experience, you're going to realize things about yourself. Things will be revealed, revelation. And what is generally revealed is your own inner strengths, characteristics that you've had that you don't necessarily need when everything is going smoothly. Why would you need bravery and risk and grit when things are normal and easy? Those really only come out once your system is pressured and you have to kind of wake up those other aspects of your personality that may be dormant, that may just not be needed, and so they're not used. So that's the revelation part of it. And then again, throughout the rest of the adventure, you're going to have that refusal of the call. It's going to come back. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there about the concept of fear versus faith. And we'll talk about a little bit more about faith in a minute. But that idea that when we're in the slog of it and when we're saying, no, I wish things could go back to normal. I wish this hadn't happened. Why can't I go back to the way things are? I think a lot of the planet is thinking, why can't we just go back to last summer when before the coronavirus even existed, we didn't even know what that was. We were just happy-go-lucky carrying on with our lives. So that lament, looking back, and wishing that we could go back to that is a form of refusal of the call. And on a deeper level, what that really means is we're battling fear versus faith. We're battling, do we trust that we're here for a reason? Do we trust that these things have happened to us individually and that we have the skills and the characteristics that we need to get through it? Or are we scared? And do we not trust our own selves? Do we not trust our allies? Do we not trust the process? Are we impatient with that? And patience is another, that's a loaded word, and we'll talk about word origins in a minute. So that's kind of where the bulk of the journey is, sort of a combination of trials, revelations, refusing the call. Like, we don't want this, but it's happening, and here we go. Some of the darkest moments, Campbell refers to it as being in the abyss. Okay, the deepest, darkest place. He says, by going to the abyss, we discover the treasures of life. Where you stumble, there lies your treasure. And that is some juicy stuff right there. Especially, I found it a lot in relationships that, if you find yourself cycling around the same kind of relationships or the same type of people, or you end up butting heads with the same type of people in your life, what is that about? What do we need to learn about ourselves so that we can control what we can control, which is not anybody else. We can only control us. So the lessons to be learned by being in that abyss are very, very valuable, even though it's also torturous and horrible. I like to think about the abyss in the darkest times as imagining that you're kind of hanging by a thread, right? That emotional state of being almost drained of all your energy. I think about the abyss when I think about Lord of the Rings. So those darkest places that Frodo was on his journey to get that ring into Mount Mordor. or Mount Doom or whatever it is. All those really, really low points. And I imagine myself hanging by a thread during that point. And we use that expression pretty commonly. And what I love to imagine with that thread is that if there's a thread holding me above an abyss, that's a pretty strong thread. Okay, so what is in that thread? Is it my allies? Is it my sense of faith? Is it my own sense that I'm an okay person and that I will persevere in spite of anything? And that is a process that goes on while you're in these darkest phases. But when you come out of that, you're coming out of that with new things, new revelations, new confidence, a new sense of bravery so that you can persevere and carry on. At the very end of the journey, we have another sort of re-entry back into the world of common day, which is different. There's this final ego act, or dragon slaying, as I like to call it. That's where the big thing is handled somehow. You make the move you need to make. You get your timing lines up perfectly so that perfect job comes open at the perfect time that you need it. This could take a long time. That's where that patience, I feel one of my abyss places is when I lose patience. That frustrates me to no end. And so I found that in my journey has been something that has really pulled me down, is trusting that there's a process unfolding and that there are things going on that I'm not aware of behind the scenes, so to speak, that are lining up to get me to where I want to be. So we have our final dragon slaying, that final thing we have to do at the end. We claim a boon at that point. So once we have challenged ourselves and overcome those challenges, what we then have in our hands psychologically is a strengthened sense of self, a strengthened sense of resolve, a sense of vitality that we have about ourselves. That's our boon. It can also physically be the boon of a new job or a new partner, or just the freedom of being independent, recovery from an illness or management of the illness. That claiming of that boon, that's a psychological claim that we take. That's where we get rid of all the things that are getting in our way, our sense of self, our ego, so to speak. And then we come back into that world of common day. We cross back into our world, but that world is all of a sudden very different, right? We are bigger at that point in time. We have grown as a result of that journey, and that world of common day doesn't always fit very well. And sometimes there's adjustments to be made. Again, when we look at Lord of the Rings in the end of the third movie, sure enough, Frodo leaves the Shire. That's a place that's too small for him, and he goes and tries to live a bigger life, presumably. When we look at this hero's journey, the very typical, common, sort of original form of a hero would be a warrior hero. The soldiers and the fighters who defend ideals and defend the realm. What we see with a lot of military folks coming back is a lot of refusal of return. That's another aspect of this adventure, is not wanting to go back, not being able to kind of accommodate and adjust to sort of what that world of common day that we left behind a long time ago, how that's going to work with our new stuff. And so I see, especially when it comes to our wounded warriors, that this refusal that there's a problem that goes, it's a difficulty acclimating, and it's not on the part of the service veterans. It's how do they adjust to the world that's been kind of chugging along as it's been going on, and they have had this humongous, massively changing experience that a lot of times is becoming pretty traumatic. So there's that element of it. That is the basics of the hero's journey. It's just a circle. A very, very simplified version, and I think this works a lot when we talk about sort of the deeper mythology and religions that we know. It's basically a separation from your known world, an initiation by whatever, and then a return to the known world with that information. I like to think of certain humongous religious figures like, I don't know, Moses, right? Moses was called up by God, given the commandments, and sent back with that knowledge, with that boon. And he found kind of a mess when he came back. A lot of times that happens. That boon that you're carrying is not necessarily always appreciated. So you have to be prepared. So it's separation, initiation, and return. It's getting separated from your clan, being initiated into something bigger, and then coming back to your clan with this additional experience and knowledge that you've learned about yourself. So that's the basics. Another big version of this hero's journey is basically as a rite of passage. It's a very common stage. I work with teenagers now, and I see high school as being kind of our modern rite of passage. We do our very best to teach them adulting skills. We graduate them and off they go into the world, but that is definitely a transition from childhood to adulthood. So a rite of passage is also an element of this journey for younger people. So that's how I look at the youth of today, as they're kind of little heroes in training, and it's up to us to kind of help raise them right and teach them what they need in order to be successful in their lives. So that's the basics of the hero's journey model. So now I have my little assistant, who is going to be my poster taker awayer. Thank you, dear. And she's just been hiding under there. She's excited to be in the video. So the level 2 question, and I've done presentations and I've talked about the hero's journey plenty, and we've talked all about the stages and how we can relate it to our own lives. But the thing I haven't really been able to get into, because it's, I'm doing corporate types of presentations and it's sort of a general audience, that I don't necessarily go here, but I'm really excited to. The question that comes up, that there's a ton of juicy stuff on, is the question of who or what is calling. When you are called to adventure, by whom, right? Who's calling and why? Okay? So that's the big magic question that I think the Oregon Country Fair audience can appreciate, is going to that deeper level of, why is this happening? Is there something guiding? Am I a puppet? Are there forces of the universe that are kind of playing around with my life a little bit? But there's a ton of information and tons of research and lots of people doing stuff and studying and writing books about this idea of a transpersonal call of some kind. I am not going to commit to any religion. I kind of like Joseph Campbell for that, where he sort of spent his life studying kind of all religions and then kind of coming up with, what do they all basically say? What are they all pointing to? So that's me. I like to kind of go with that, what are they all pointing to, and not get real specific about who or what. But, there's a lot of evidence that shows, even in the standard wellness dimensions, so wellness models, wellness programs, is that spiritual health is very, very important. Different than religion, right? It's not what we've been brought up with. It's not in a book. It's not that we stand up and sit down and pray in groups. It's different than that. Spirituality is a very personal, individual relationship. And that's where this question comes up. Okay, and I'm going to throw my hat on because I'm getting blind. I hope this doesn't change anything except my ability to see my screens. So, who is calling? What is calling? It doesn't have to be named, but it's God of some kind. Here I have a little burning bush, right? So that's, another element of that story is, Moses is out there doing his thing. All of a sudden, God is talking to him, literally out of a bush. Or maybe it was just fall. So that's an element of a lot of stories, is that person has been selected out somehow by something bigger than themselves. I really like Joseph Campbell's definition of God, which is that it's a metaphor. It's 3 letters in a certain order that represents that which is beyond our ability to kind of conceive intellectually. God is a metaphor for that which transcends all level of intellectual thought. There's what we think God is, and then there's whatever actually is, because it's above and beyond our ability to really conceptualize with our own human heads. But I think it's kind of interesting. I like a little mystery in my life myself. Cultures and religions have been pointing to something otherworldly since the dawn of time. Whether it was spirit animals, whether it's a polytheistic kind of Greek-Roman mythology-based thing, or what was evolved to today, where there's kind of one person in charge or 2 people in charge. I like the bigger, broader definition myself. I like to sort of not commit to necessarily what it is, but also be aware that there might be a little magic in life. It does bring me at ease, my own individual spiritual life, my sense of faith, my sense of hope, my sense of interconnectedness with other people, my sense of appreciation and awe for beautiful things in nature. All of that kind of marks my spiritual life. And when rotten things are happening, it's definitely an interesting place to consider, what might my purpose be? how can I use this horrible thing that might be happening to make myself a better person, be more compassionate, cultivate patience, be gutsy and brave as all get out, and not let anything get in your way. The hero's journey teaches you bravery like nothing else, if you start to embrace it, because it's that fear versus faith conflict, okay? If you have faith that there's a reason, if you have faith that you do have skills that are worthy for the world to see, then that's what's true. And so you go with that. So the who or what is calling concept is really a really interesting, fun place to be, and there's a lot of stuff that you can look at to learn more about that. So, assistants, stand up. Thank you, dear. Okay, so to that end, there's a lot of things in there. I don't like to make uninformed decisions. I like to kind of live an empirically valid life. I like peer-reviewed stuff to kind of help me feel like I am kind of on the right track. I don't like to be too far off into outer space necessarily. Can I go? Okay, so there's a lot of theory that is behind this whole this idea that there might be something transcendent out there, and even if there isn't, it's kind of fun to think that there is, because it can do a lot of stuff. It can be very healing, it can be very generative, and can really make you gutsy, which is sometimes how we need to be. So the clusters of theory that it kind of comes around, I'm not sure how well you can see this in the partial shade, but I'll read these aloud. Carl Jung, Jung, the psychologist, he was before his time. He's the person who came up with the ideas of collective unconscious and archetypes, of which the hero is an archetype. The collective unconscious, the idea that we all are really similar in some psychologically foundational ways. There are the things that we all experience individually, and then there are things that we experience as a human species that are collective. A nice piece of that evidence would be sort of our dream life, which I'm not going into at all. That's like level 3. I don't go level 3 about dreamscapes and what happens and how we can analyze and interpret our dreams to plug into this. But it is evidence of the collective unconscious. When I started going to career conferences as a brand new career counselor, I was stunned at this whole career as calling movement. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's where these psychologists and career development people are like, yeah, maybe we could, there's a little bit of that dimension in there. The word calling, again, means road. This is a good time for some word origins. So career is calling. So we've got the word vocation. So like vocational rehabilitation, voc rehab, vocational education. That word vocation is Latin for call. So being called by something, and then in the old school, it's being called by God to do a thing. Okay, vocation. The word passion itself means suffering. Okay, so when we are pursuing our passion, if we're struggling and if it's hard and if we're scared, that's exactly how we're supposed to be. There is, when we think about the passion of the Christ, that's the suffering of the Christ. Patience is also connected to that root origin too. So again, my struggles are sometimes with patience, and patience, passion, and suffering are all like interconnected. So if things aren't happening on your timeline, how is that making you insane? And is it a patience study? Okay, so those are a lot of the things that are coming out of the words that we have. Okay. Oh, where are my little notes? So the Jungian thing, so collective unconscious, Pacific Graduate Institute, career is calling happenstance theory. John Crumboltz there's a book you could buy about happenstance. So how do these random things that happen, how are they maybe not necessarily random? Or how can we make that not random? How can we choose these random moments and make them more meaningful? There's been a lot of great writers about that. Greg Lavoie, who wrote Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life, is a wonderful book. Deborah Block and Lee Richmond, who've written spirit and work types of books. John Crumboldt, who went into sort of earlier Adlerian, kind of how our earlier childhood memories really shape what we do as adults in a lot of ways. And then Crumboldt with his happenstance theory, which I love. That's absolutely happened to me. A lot of times careers come down to accidents. So how do you do that with all the preparation that you do and all the stuff we learn as career counselors, how to prepare students or young adults or career transitioners, when a lot of times it's sort of accidental. It's who you know or what you happen to see at a certain time, and how is that valid? So then we also have Viktor Frankl, and existential psychology is another thing that really informs this. Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor, and he came out of that experience with the man's search for meaning. And how do we choose our attitudes? How do we change our mind, change our outlook so that we can see that how we feel about what is happening is ultimately a choice. Of all the given choices that we can have about a certain situation, how can we adopt an attitude of patience or faith or awe, even under the most dire circumstances? As far as I'm concerned, he proved that theory by what he observed while he was in concentration camps, literally. So it's that existential quest for meaning that is where that calling element comes in also. We try and find things that are meaningful. We try and assign meaning to things that are randomly out there. And that's kind of almost human nature, is to kind of find something that makes sense. And maybe this journey is what's making sense once you understand it better. I also pull a lot from sort of that divine feminism, the divine female. That's given me a lot of information about more earth-based religions and the power of the other way of looking at divinity and theology, is that maybe it's coming up from underneath the ground instead of being flung in from somewhere in outer space on some cloud somewhere. So sort of having a wider range of sort of knowledge of different sort of spiritual ideas is something that can really help you with this process also, and kind of figuring out what might I be listening to inside myself. Positive psychology is also something that is real helpful. It's why not choose the positive? Why not see what positive can be gained? What are the silver linings? What are the moments of peace and contentedness that we can cling to until something comes along, until an ally comes along, until an insight comes along that kind of helps us get going again. Campbell pulled a lot from anthropology and mythology. That was his deal. That has been around for thousands of years. Again, there's no inventing the hero's journey. We invented it. That comes out of us. That's why those stories are all written in that similar way. Is there's something about our psychosocial, spiritual DNA that flings out these kind of themes that we see everywhere, and that's just a matter of plugging it into our own lives. So those are the kinds of things that I think about. I like a little validity. I like to see that there's something been written out there that helps inform my spiritual life, and how this model will help move me forward, tapping into my sense of faith, my sense of confidence, my sense of maybe things are happening for a reason, for a certain way. There's something better coming along. We a lot of times, Campbell says, we set our goals too small. Our ego is real fragile. We're afraid of a lot of things. We're sometimes afraid to be better. And so we live a life that's kind of held back, and we can say no to callings our whole life. We can all feel callings that we should be doing this or we should be doing that. We're meant for something different, but not have the guts to actually do it. And so I think it's His Holiness the Dalai Lama said something like, not getting what you want is sometimes a wonderful stroke of luck. So it kind of helps turn all of that upside down in ways that can be helpful in a lot of situations. So that's where that deeper element of that hero's journey comes in, is where you can really plug into how can you individually connect with the mystery a little bit, to help make sort of braver decisions and have some confidence in yourself and really self-evaluate. A big element of that is listening. A call, ring, 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 ring. You could be getting called all the time, but if you're not paying attention, if your phone is turned off, then you're going to miss it. So that idea that a call that you might be receiving something is not going to come big and huge. It's not going to be a burning bush on our front lawn. But it might be a little sign, it might be a little indicator, there might be a little somebody says something at the right time, or gosh, in my case, you happen to see a job that's perfect at the right time, that you happen to be mad about your current job and are randomly looking for jobs. It can line up like that. So that's how you kind of live that sort of deeper life of where you're kind of exploring your spiritual life as you interpret it. For a lot of people, it's lined up really nicely with their religion, and for a lot of people, it's simply not. But finding your own place and your own peace so that you can listen and respond and be open to what signals you might be receiving. They're not going to be huge. I also really believe that this helps me state intentions. You can't wish for stuff in life without indicating to the universe that you're interested in it. The universe isn't going to respond if it's all just in your head. So if there's an action you need to take, those are the actions you need to take. If you need to see a counselor, sometimes that's asking for help and pulling in an ally. What do you do to get yourself ready for that which you are wishing for? And sometimes the destiny will call. Sometimes the rug gets pulled right out from underneath you and you're kind of forced on it, and that's how you change your life. Or you choose it. After some good, careful planning and maybe some career counseling or mental health counseling to help you get your guts up, maybe some reading about the hero's journey, things like that. So that's a lot of what, the deeper level of what you can do. Poster child. Thank you. Okay. So one of the things that I think is most important, one of the quotes of Joseph Campbell that sticks with me the most is this idea that the influence of a vital person vitalizes. That is really important, and I think especially today. This is COVID time. This is a very, very unprecedented globally. Well, at least in 100 years, right? We had the Spanish flu. But for modern times, especially in the age that we have with interconnectivity and technology, which I think is, I think a gift from the universe that we happen to have that lined up right now, that we can do video. I can put my kid on Messenger Kids, or I can put her on Zoom and she can connect with her friends or continue to be in school, that I can do my job from home with an app on my phone to give me the confidentiality that I need. So it's a miracle that this is happening at the time that we have the technological resources to adapt to it. So the most important thing that we can do is focus on ourselves. I know that's sort of counterintuitive. We're all supposed to be thinking about the world and how do we take care of the world. That is easily overwhelming and can easily make you feel bad pretty quick, because the world is messy and big and we are just one individual person. So I always come down to this idea that we kind of have to take care of ourselves first. The influence of a vital person vitalizes. So for us to take care of our own life and to do what we can in our own world, is our family healthy? Break it out into little circles. Is my family okay? Is my neighborhood okay? Is my community of people okay? What can I do to kind of strengthen myself so that I can be helpful to other people? It's kind of like that mask on an airplane. You need to give yourself that oxygen first so that you can be the person that you need to be for others. So when I think of all these crazy things that are going on in the world, I kind of come back to this. So what can I do to keep myself sane so that I can be an asset to other people? And that's kind of where it's going to land. Okay. And I have talked, I looked a little bit on the internet kind of before doing this to see if there was any new research. Are people connecting Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey to the current coronavirus situation? And I think to myself, it's only been a couple months. How can anything possibly be published anyway? But sure enough, there is a little bit of chatter about that. I did a quick little Google search, Joseph Campbell, hero's journey, COVID. And a good little handful of things popped up. So there are medical professionals that are talking about that. There was an article in Forbes magazine about how can we use that model to kind of help us during this time, either from an organizational perspective or from a mental health perspective. How can we frame this current situation in the world with all the hate and all the negativity How can this model that's been in existence for thousands of years and that we've been sort of generating it as a species, how can that be helpful right now? And there is some chatter. I was really excited to see that, yes, people are making that connection to the hero's journey or heroine's journey, to sort of our current situation and how can we respond in a way that's brave. I see a lot of the negativity and the anger and the frustration and the debate about masks and things like that. And I look at it from a real basic feeling-based sort of perspective. And what I see or suspect is a lot of people are scared. Humankind, I feel, is scared. There's a threat. There's a thing that's come out that's unexpected and brand new. And it is human nature. It's built into our limbic system to do that fight or flight thing. And I think a lot of people are maybe wired for fight. So I think a lot of that uncertainty is coming out as anger, but I think it's based in fear. I think it's based on how people are just not 100% sure what's going on. We can't rely on things being the same. Change is uncomfortable. And I also see a lot of people rushing through and trying to come to some sort of equilibrium. And I couldn't believe how fast I saw the term the new normal, right, when this coronavirus situation started. We're not at the new normal. We're barely at the beginning of it. People wanting to rush to put, we're done with it, this is new, this is different, we can adjust. Instead of being comfortable with sort of that transition phase. And transitions are very uncomfortable. It's where you're flying with a net. You don't have a lot of answers. But that transition phase needs to be appreciated and given its space. So hopefully we're not committing to a new normal yet. We don't know how this thing is going to turn out. And it's just observing and being in the moment where we're trying to figure things out for the very first time. So I think that's where a lot of patience can come, is recognizing that we need to let Mother Nature, we need to let her do her thing, and have the science kind of reveal to us what it is we're going to do and handle it with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of faith, and protection, being safe, being careful, making good decisions, like not having a fair in person this year, doing those things so that we can feel safe and vital, that we know that we're coming home each day to a safe home, that we have made our safe, that we've been out in the world and can come back into our good home base so that we can focus on being vital people. And I think that's really, really important. So sort of the takeaway of what I'm hoping to sort of give out in this little video is that there is an algorithm, there is a formula that guides us during uncertain times. This has been an amazing experience that I have had. I first learned about the hero's journey as a single person. And I ended up with a partner pretty quickly after that. And then the first time I made the connection, there's a moment where you look at the hero's journey as an external thing, like this is a cool thing to learn. And then there's a moment where it clunks when you realize that you're experiencing it firsthand. And that was when, about a year after I started working with the hero's journey and doing presentations about it with clients, I lost my job. And it was that dumbfounding moment. And I remember I was in an office with a colleague having that moment of, oh my gosh, I'm on the hero's journey right now. Like, this is all happening. And when you can plug that in internally, it becomes a completely different experience altogether. So, and it's a really amazing, incredibly helpful philosophy to embrace for lots of different things. And I hope that everybody will take some time to maybe look it up, find out for yourself. It started for me with hearing a presentation about it and doing my own research, and it's taken years, and you cultivate it and you ask questions and you reach, I always go back to reaching out for allies. Who are the people who I can talk to about this? Is it going to be a counselor? Is it going to be a life coach? Is it going to be a medical professional? Is it going to be a trusted friend? Who are the allies who are going to help you not keep it all in your head all at once so that you can share your concerns with that? So that's kind of what I'm hoping the message is going to be, is that there is something that we can plug into that will help us be braver, help us live a life that's more authentic, that responding to that call is going to kind of, the soul knows what it is that we're supposed to be doing, and help you feel interconnected, that we really are all doing this the same way for a certain amount. There's a lot of single people out there. There's a lot of lonely people out there right now who are in their homes. not being able to self-isolate with people. And so how can you reach out, and how can you shape your life so that it feels empowered and strong instead of weak and helpless? So it really kind of changes that stance. So those are the things I hope you'll like about it. If nothing else, you'll watch your movies the same. All the movies are the same. They all work exactly the same way. You don't ever have to watch another movie again. So that's kind of what I was hoping for you to take away with this. Okay. So I'm just going to leave with it. This is a list of books. I'm going to read them in case you can't really see on this now that we're getting nice and shaded. Perfect. So I'm comfortable, but you can't read the thing. So The Power of Myth, he did this with Bill Moyers. It's both a DVD series and a book. This was hot in the 80s, is The Power of Myth. The book is amazing. It has a lot more than the DVD does, but the DVD also has like wonderful sound bites, and it's just amazing to just watch him and Bill Moyers have a conversation with each other. I've also really liked a simple book, Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's very, very scholarly and academic and has writing that's like this big and tons of big words. So you might not want to start with that one necessarily. I really like An Open Life. It's a conversation with Michael Toms. It was a series of radio interviews. There's a couple Joseph Campbell quotes out there that aren't as well known. And An Open Life is where I discovered Joseph Campbell talking about incubating your destiny, where yes, you may have a destiny. Yes, it may be something that you're meant to do, but it's not going to just like get thrown into your lap. You have to kind of cook it a little bit and make choices along the way that will help you get yourself ready for those things to occur. Another thing I just recently read, and I have to verify it, Joseph Campbell did coin the phrase "follow your bliss." It's what he talked about with his students at Sarah Lawrence. But what I read recently, and I hope it's valid, I'm not sure, but I like it anyway, is that Campbell said, you know what I really should have said was follow your blisters, okay? Because following your bliss, doing the thing that you really want to do that's hard, is going to be hard. It's going to cause some pain, because passion is suffering, right? Doing the thing that's right for you, there's an element of suffering to that, and there is meaning in that. Follow your blisters and incubate your destiny are two other quotes that Joseph Campbell has said that doesn't get a lot of play. Finding Joe is a wonderful film by Patrick Takaya Solomon. This came out a good handful of years ago, and his story took a very, very negative turn. He finished the movie, it was out for production, and then he kind of dropped off the face of the earth. The reason why that is that his wife was battling cancer and eventually did lose her life to cancer. And so here is a creator of films about the hero's journey, having to embark upon the most dire journey that I think anybody can be on, is to help a loved one with a terminal illness. But he is back out. He has popped back up in the world with his second wave of what he's going to do. So I really throw support behind Finding Joe. It's a wonderful film. It's a wonderful program. Hero with a Thousand Faces, that's the classic. That's where he put, this is where his thesis is. If you want, the Joseph Campbell Foundation, there's actually a huge foundation. It has tons of information. You can become a member. You can do, they have all sorts of things, like the archives are just there. It's amazing. I did a mythological roundtable for a while where I actually kind of like ran a group about and around Joseph Campbell's ideas at the library. So that's something that you could even do if you want to take it to that next level. jcf.org. And another little companion book, I think, is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Susan Jeffers. Talks a lot about fear. Hero's Journey is about fear. It's about conquering fear. So Susan Jeffers gives us a little bit more information about how to do that. Excuse me. So those are some resources. To kind of sum up, I just want to thank everybody so much for listening. I want to thank the Oregon Country Fair for letting me do this. I want to thank Andy Kern and the Pocatello Merry Pirates for telling a Chicago transplant to Idaho about the Oregon Country Fair in the first place. I would have never known about it. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm just really grateful for how my life has played out so that I can embrace this hero's journey and then also teach it to other people if they find that interesting. You can reach me at goodnance@isu.edu if you have any questions or thoughts or comments. Here in Pocatello, Idaho, this glorious little corner of the world that nobody knows about. I do have a little tip jar, I think, associated with this video. That money is gonna, if you decide to donate, that's great. It's probably gonna be going right back into the Oregon Country Fair, because they need your help also this year. It's important to give as much monetary support to the fair as you can this year, because this is different. I'll also be probably throwing some donations towards the Joseph Campbell Foundation and their local food bank. I feel like that's just an easy, good way for me to kind of help my community, is by providing sort of some basic needs that I feel. So if you decide to do that, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. So to sum up, I hope everybody has a great fair this year. I hope that we'll all see each other next year in person. Thank you again, and I really hope that you did find this helpful, and that it's something that you could feel you can apply in your life at some point, or the life of somebody else. So having said all that, thank you very much, and have a great day.